What's good, everyone? I'm excited to bring you this video because I've been completely psyched with my bench press progress and gains over the last few months. Bench has been one of those areas that hadn't really improved for me due to an injury and stretching, re-injuring again. When I last tested in November, I was only able to hit essentially the same PR I hit last May for the garage gym competition. It was slow, wobbly, and far from pretty. No real loss, but no real progress either. I couldn't really complain with not getting worse at the time, but staying stagnant is a bummer. To make things worse, I hurt my pec-shoulder connection again in February, and suddenly my bench suffered badly. I had gone from doing sets of about 225 comfortably to struggling with 185 for sets, and that was my previous last warm-up set weight. Just look at the unsteadiness of my arms and the bar. I know some of you can relate when I say it got me down quite a bit, as taking steps backward is never fun, but it happens to almost everyone at one point or another. The worst part was that I injured myself detailing my truck of all things, so I had nothing at all to do with the training. The detailing paid off, but it cost me physically. Now before I get into the what, I just want to quickly put out some disclaimers. First, most of what I'm stating here is not new information and has been shared before, but perhaps not altogether or within the context of coming back from an injury. Secondly, I am not a certified trainer, nor am I trying to provide training advice to you. I'm merely sharing my experience and what has definitively worked for me. I'm middle-aged and have been training for decades, and I've picked up a few things along the way. I simply want to pay it forward and potentially help others, as I have benefited from many individuals on this online fitness community. With that out of the way, let's get to the nitty-gritty. The first step I took with my bench press was to listen to my body. That meant slowing my roll and paying attention to the signs and adjusting accordingly. What did that mean for me? Well, I noticed that sets 3 and 4 of my working sets always felt best, most comfortable, and it moved the smoothest. That means that I benefit from more warm-ups. So I started out with just the bar as I always did, but instead of one set of 25, now I do 2 sets of 25 reps with just a bar. Then instead of going to my typical 45-pound plates, I move to just 25-pound plates for the next warm-up set, and then move to 45s and additional plates, and so on from there. Within this same zone of easing through my warm-ups before hitting my top set and back-off sets, I also started doing less reps as the warm-ups got heavier. Less than I previously did anyway. This helped with avoiding fatiguing myself. Now I know that might sound counterproductive, more warm-ups, less weight, but I'm talking about more reps with the lighter weights than I previously did and less reps with the heavier weights than previous. You go heavy when you need to or when the programming calls for it. It's a simple adjustment, but big results in comfort and therefore confidence. Now the second step I took was to adjust my grip. Since I realized with my particular injury, most of my discomfort came from a wider grip and exercises like flies. I decided to experiment with going narrower, not narrow like strictly shoulder width apart, but narrower than I was accustomed to. This provided additional comfort that also boosted my confidence, instead of the typical pain that constantly worried me. With each bench session, I would try adjusting my grip by a single finger width. Where I typically used to have my middle finger on the powerlifting ring, I then tried the ring finger and pinky finger on the ring. Each adjustment felt better and better, so I stuck with it. Nowadays, I toggle between pinky or pinky just inside the power ring. Once in a blue, I'll again experiment with the ring finger to see how I'm feeling as I regain my mobility and strength in that shoulder area. Simply find what grip width is most comfortable to you and use that while you regain strength. An interesting note here, Squat University recently put out a short video for the optimal grip width. It's called How to Bench Press for Your Anatomy. I'll leave a link in the description for those that may not have yet seen it. I may give that a go soon, but once I feel fully healed. Now the third thing I've adjusted was my Scap retraction. I decided to focus on this because I felt like I was pulling my shoulder off the bench. I was diligent with this, and I'm positive this helped a great deal. Now the fourth adjustment I made had to do with the bar position over my head. Again, listening to my body, I noticed I was feeling pain just unracking and re-racking the bar. So to fix this, I moved my head back higher up the bench towards the top edge and then slowly brought my face into position. The change I made here was this. Instead of starting with the bar over my eyes, I positioned the bar to sit roughly over my upper lip or mouth. This is only 4 to 5 inches, but it made a huge difference. Now instead of unracking the bar and swinging it into position for a longer distance, all under weight, I now only move the bar about 3 inches from the J-cup to the start position. Again, this eases the tension off my painful shoulder. The first 4 steps I described here were all about preventing pain or discomfort. Now let's discuss what I did to actually improve my bench press strength and mechanics. So the 5th step I took was to also ensure strict positioning and tightness of the body. So this meant a mental checklist from top to bottom. Once I moved my feet off the bench to the floor, I made sure my feet were firmly planted and that I mentally checked that I still had my scaps retracted. Then I ensured my butt was touching the bench, and then finally bracing prior to my first rep. I also incorporated my belt even though it isn't as tight when I'm in the bench position. I know it's there and I use it to remind me to brace. I got better and quicker with this list of cues, and it too has helped quite a lot. Now the sixth adjustment I made was in tightening my grip on the bar. This is still relatively new for me because for decades I benched with what's called a suicide grip, where my thumb was next to my fingers instead of wrapped around the bar on the other side opposite my fingers. By focusing on a tighter grip, it too helped me with creating and maintaining a tight body from head to toe, eliminating energy leaks along the way. Now, if your grip is relaxed, the bar can roll slightly, forcing your wrist to adjust and move with it, and that is an energy leak. This tight grip alone has really helped me, and at first it seems silly, like a waste of energy to focus on a tight grip, but believe me, it works if you stick with it. Now the way I tighten it is by rolling the bar in steps so that it digs into the webbing between my thumb and forefinger, and then I tighten the remaining fingers before I create that glute bridge. If you don't do this, give it a shot and let me know what you think. The second part of this adjustment was with the range of motion, and in particular, the top of the rep. I used to practically lock out my elbows, and in doing so, I would elevate my shoulders off the bench. Now I just get close to block out, and this helps keep my scaps down and in place. Now moving to some of the tools I use to help with my progress, and the first tool and seventh step was adding elbow sleeves. This was to help with some elbow tendonitis I was experiencing at the bottom of the rep range. Nonetheless, they simply provided comfort, and the minimal compression has helped remove the tendonitis pain for me. Previously, I would inadvertently drop the weight on my chest because the elbow pain prevented my control of the descent. This created sloppy control overall, and adding the sleeves helped me keep the range of motion tighter throughout and more controlled. The next tool I added on the list was adding my rep Cambered Swiss bar. Now this addition is not about the brand, but this addition has helped me twofold. First, changing grips to allow for a neutral grip definitely helped and felt good with taking stress off my shoulder, much in the way that taking a closer grip on the straight bar did. Secondly, it helped by recruiting additional muscles in the wrist and forearm to help stabilize the bar. When you first start using the Swiss bar, it can be challenging to stabilize that weird pendulum effect you get with it, and it really improves your forearm and grip strength. Using it 1 out of the 3 bench sessions per week has helped in creating strength to stabilize my hands and create a tighter chain throughout the body to the bar. Now it doesn't have to be a rep bar, it can be a Cadillac bar or any brand of Swiss bar you can get your hands on. And actually, you don't need a Swiss bar either, but it is what helped me with my situation. If you don't have or want a Swiss bar, you can simply use dumbbells if you have them heavy enough to work your chest adequately. This way you can alter your hand position to mimic a neutral grip throughout the range of motion, and heavy dumbbells will call into demand the wrist and forearm much in the same way. However, just know that if you have a shoulder problem and you begin working with heavy dumbbells, you do risk further injury if you lose control of one of them. This is why the Swiss bar comes in handy, because you have extra stability with the bar being gripped by both hands. When using dumbbells, I am really careful and deliberate with the movements. I maintain total control throughout, and if fatigue sets in and threatens form, I stop. I do not want to risk losing control and injuring myself, especially with an extra exercise I've thrown in. The second to last item that helped was varying the bench exercise through programming. This, I believe, was an inadvertent benefit in that my programming called for barbell pin presses, a different style that helped by taking stress off my shoulder at the bottom of the range of motion. Letting the bar sit on the pins or safety just above your chest is very much like a pulse bench. However, you allow the pins to hold the bar momentarily, taking the stress off. Then you try to explode off the pins to complete your rep. This subtle training adjustment was effective for me by providing a split-second rest and relief at the bottom range of motion, but it still demanded the same strength to push the bar away from me. Last year I learned that I responded well to 3 sessions per week. 2 per week simply wasn't enough for growth and increases in strength. I realize this too may sound counterproductive when speaking of coming back from an injury, but it's the same as physical therapy with high volume. You don't overdo it with heavy weights, but you do increase frequency to properly build up or build back tissue. If you're properly warmed up, it really won't be a problem. However, don't just throw in extra sets or reps for the hell of it, like a 4th bench session per week. When things are going well, you still have to temper your enthusiasm and proceed with control and discipline, or you'll likely find yourself right back in the same position you were at before. There have been many days when I was pressing that bar away from me with ease and it felt great, but I had to chill so as not to become overconfident, overzealous, and overdo it. I've been there, and that's one bit of wisdom any seasoned lifter can attest to. Stick to the program and be patient, and the growth will come. Now, all of this has helped me regain strength and get even stronger. Last week, I pressed my previous PR of 275 with a swiftness and absolutely no pain. If you look at the footage, you'll see the difference from last November and just 2 weeks ago. Besides 1 rep maxes, I'm back to benching 225 at higher reps of 5 or 6, and it feels great physically and mentally. I've gotten to the point where I no longer fear heavier sets because I am without pain and most certainly stronger than before. So that's it. Those are the changes and tools I've implemented to improve my bench over the last 6 to 7 months. I hope some of you can benefit from some or all of this information. Also, please share any useful tips that have worked for you in the past by dropping a comment below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I appreciate you watching. So take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.